What's going on, guys? We have the Figma Female Archetype flesh color that we will be going over today, as well as 6 of her hands. That is her only accessory. It comes in this fantastic clear plastic, and there is a backer to it which you can pull out. Get some poses on the back, as well as your typical mumbo jumbo, and I am still fairly certain this is a bootleg. They usually go for about $35. I got mine for $15, so I saved about $20 doing that. But I still want to get the real thing, because as awesome as this is and as fun as it is to just goof off with, let me move Chip Hazard out of the way. He will be getting a review soon too, by the way. There are some definite issues with it. So let's go ahead and start off with our articulation. Right off the bat, head moves down about that much. You can actually move it down a little further, but as you can see, the head splitting. Without the head splitting, the head only moves that much. You can move, turn the light off, see if that, yes, that does, the head back that much, which is a ton of range, an absolute ton of range. So from that, with the seam splitting, to that is really good actually. You can kinda, how did I do it? Can't move the head side to side, sadly, which keeps from some natural posing. But the head you can spin around completely. We have a joint inside, which kind of moves every which way. I believe that's a ball joint in there. You can spin the arm around, lift the arm that far up even further if you twist the arm a little bit, and switch the arm straight down. Arm can rotate completely thanks to this disc joint. We can get a fantastic amount of range right here, and each of these ligaments basically spin, except for this one can, but the disc prevents it. That's okay, not a big deal, don't need that. The hands can also spin, but that's one of the issues with the bootlegs, is the hands love falling off. These really aren't very well made for hands. I could probably use some nail polish to really tighten it up and keep that from happening. But as you can see, the hand here is actually starting to bend quite a bit so that it's not a proper connection. Bend that back a little bit. So along with spinning, the hand can move that far back, that forward, giving really good range of motion. We get the, pull this off, put the arms up so that you can really see this. That far forward, that far back, so boom, which is pretty good. You don't really get much of a left or right, but you do get some. And if you pull this up too far, you can see the split in there, which is a little bothersome for me. The waist, you get that far forward and that far back. You can kind of pop this out right there. I'm unsure if that is an issue with the real Figma, and this has become a little bothersome for me in posing, in that if you pull her too far back, her little hip piece will get caught in there. which is easy enough to fix. The legs have the same issue, where if you move it the wrong way, the legs kind of get popped in there, but you can move it back in. Now, legs move that far forward. You can kind of play with it to get a little more, but you're rubbing really hard against this. The knees move that far back. Legs move that far back before getting impeded by the butt. And we don't get an ankle pivot, at least on this version of it. But feet move that far back, feet move this far forward, and we kind of get... No, this doesn't have much of a tilt to it. That's pretty much it for the articulation. For the paint app, doesn't really matter as long as it's all basically a single tone, which for the most part it is. Now we got some really rough scuffage right there on the nose, a bit on the head, and we got some flashing on the face, which is usually for knockoffs. So pros of this figure: you can basically move it any which way you want, and I got it because I cannot draw women for the life of me. By the way, that's as far as it goes sideways. You move it anymore and this pops out. I've never had this one pop out. Always the left one. Excuse me. So, pros: you can basically pose this almost any way you want. I haven't had any poses that I've wanted to do that I can't. Cons are it feels insanely cheap, whereas the Link Figma did not. There is not as much articulation as the Link Figma has, even though there is a fair amount, and they did a decent job with it. The head just pops off insanely easily. And these hands like to come apart. Speaking of hands, we get 6 little craptastic attempts at one fist. This one's already popping off. The joint is opening. A closed... Oh, that's an open fist, by the way, for holding whatever accessories you have. We have a closed fist. We've got posing hands, flash hands, flare hands, whatever, for both. And then we have the hands that come with it, which are just regular basic hands. Now you can definitely tell on here which hands I've used. I've played around with this one a lot, more than any other. And I've also played around with this one too. And the hands, there's no fingernails, anything like that. There's a lot of flash on specifically the wrist part of the hands, like they just didn't want to clean it. But with some cleanup, this could be really solid. Overall, I will say, the stand. Also, be very careful when buying these. The stand does say Figma. Most bootleg Figmas do not say Figma or have any of this text right here. Just says Figma Max Factory. I can't make out that last part. Action figure series. They usually do not look this good. They did a really solid job with that, and they also did a really solid job with this. I'm starting to think that this might have been like bootleg hands on an actual Figma with an actual Figma stand. I have no idea. But overall, it has been a lot of fun to play with. If you can afford the real thing, do get it. I'll have the link to getting not just the flesh colored version in the description below, but I will also have, there is a clear version, there's a couple different versions, and there is a male version that I'm going to get the real Figma for before I grab the bootleg. I might grab the bootleg because it's cheaper, but I really want the real things for these, just so I can get the really good posing. I am using these for drawing, as I'm not very good. These things work better for me than, say, the wooden blocks. It kind of lays out the face, and I'm just using it to learn basic anatomy, even though it's not 100% anatomically correct. But that's pretty much it for today. You guys have a wonderful day.